A third party just confronted your soulmate about you. Their reaction shocked everyone. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Before we begin, remember that this is a fictional story created for reflection and emotional storytelling, not a claim about your life or anyone else's future. Imagine an ordinary afternoon that begins like countless others. The room is filled with casual conversation, the kind that drifts effortlessly from work to family, from old memories to future plans. Your soulmate sits quietly among a small group of people, smiling politely, contributing now and then, giving every impression that life has settled into a comfortable routine. No one in the room notices the thoughts they keep hidden behind that calm expression. No one realizes that beneath the surface they have been carrying questions they have never answered aloud. Then, without warning, the atmosphere changes. Someone who has been listening quietly sets down their cup, looks directly at your soulmate, and gently says your name. The conversation stops almost instantly. Laughter fades. Every pair of eyes turns toward your soulmate, waiting for a response. It isn't the mention of your name alone that catches them off guard. It is the unexpected way it arrives, in the middle of an otherwise ordinary conversation, with no time to prepare, no opportunity to hide behind rehearsed explanations. For a brief moment, they simply stare back in silence. Their heart begins to race, not because they have done something wrong, but because certain memories have a way of returning before the mind has time to organize them. They never expected this conversation to happen today, especially not in front of other people. They had spent so much time convincing themselves that those thoughts belonged safely in the past. Yet hearing your name spoken aloud instantly brought everything rushing back. They remembered conversations left unfinished, moments of kindness they never properly appreciated, and opportunities for honesty that had quietly slipped away because they believed there would always be another chance. In that single moment, they realized that some memories never truly disappear. They simply wait patiently until something unexpected invites them back into the light. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. The person who mentioned your name was not trying to create conflict. Their question was simple, almost casual. Have you ever wondered what happened after everything that took place? The room remained completely still. Your soulmate looked down for a moment before taking a slow breath. Inside, countless emotions competed for attention. Part of them wanted to smile politely, change the subject, and continue pretending that chapter of life had already been closed. Another part quietly reminded them how exhausting it had become to carry unfinished thoughts year after year. They realized that avoiding a conversation does not erase its emotional weight. Sometimes silence preserves questions far longer than honest words ever would. They looked around the room and noticed that no one appeared judgmental. Everyone was simply waiting, curious to hear whatever answer felt genuine. That realization surprised them. They had imagined this moment many times before, always assuming people would misunderstand their feelings. Instead, they found themselves surrounded not by criticism but by patient silence. For the first time, they wondered whether vulnerability might require less courage than endless avoidance. Still, the words refused to come. Instead, memories continued unfolding one after another. They remembered a simple conversation filled with laughter. They remembered promises to remain honest even when life became difficult. They remembered believing that meaningful connections naturally survive without consistent effort. Looking back now, they understood how easily everyday responsibilities, misunderstandings, and unspoken assumptions can create distance between people who genuinely care about one another. None of it happened dramatically. It happened gradually, through postponed conversations, unanswered questions, and the mistaken belief that there would always be more time. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. After several quiet moments, your soulmate finally lifted their eyes. Before speaking, they noticed little details around the room they might never have observed on another day. Sunlight filtered through the nearby window, dust drifting gently through the air. A clock ticked steadily in the background. Someone absent-mindedly checked their phone, where 11:11 briefly appeared on the screen before disappearing again. Later, another receipt lying on the table happened to end with 222, and someone casually mentioned seeing 444 during their drive over. Many people enjoy treating repeating numbers like these as reminders to slow down and become more mindful. Whether understood as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts to reflect, they reminded your soulmate that moments of stillness often reveal thoughts we have been too busy to acknowledge. They realized that the conversation unfolding around them was not truly about the past alone. It was about the person they were becoming. Had they learned from earlier mistakes? Had they become more willing to communicate honestly? Had they discovered that appreciation should be expressed while opportunities still exist instead of assumed to be understood? Those questions felt far more important than defending themselves or explaining every detail of what had happened before. For the first time in a very long while, they stopped worrying about appearing strong and began wondering what genuine honesty might sound like if they simply allowed themselves to speak from the heart. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Perhaps you have experienced moments like this in your own life. Maybe someone unexpectedly mentioned a person you had not thought about in a long time, and suddenly memories you believed had faded returned with surprising clarity. Such moments often remind us how deeply ordinary conversations can shape our emotional lives. They encourage us to reflect on gratitude left unspoken, apologies postponed, and relationships that taught us valuable lessons about patience, empathy, and communication. Unknown to you, your soulmate was arriving at those same realizations. They understood that meaningful relationships are rarely defined by flawless circumstances. Instead, they are shaped through countless ordinary decisions to listen carefully, communicate respectfully, forgive sincerely, and remain present even during uncomfortable conversations. Just as they finally gathered enough courage to answer the unexpected question, the same person leaned forward, looked directly into their eyes, and quietly asked one final question that no one in the room had anticipated, a question so personal, so unexpected, and so impossible to avoid that your soulmate's expression changed instantly, leaving everyone waiting in complete silence for the answer that would follow. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. The room remained completely silent after the unexpected question was asked. No one reached for their phone. No one interrupted. Even the ordinary sounds that had filled the room only moments earlier seemed to fade into the background as every eye rested on your soulmate. They could feel the weight of the moment, not because they were being judged, but because they realized they had reached a point where honesty mattered more than comfort. The question was simple: if you had the chance to do things differently, would you? For a few long seconds, they didn't answer. Instead, they looked toward the window as memories quietly resurfaced one after another. They remembered conversations they wished had lasted a little longer, moments when gratitude stayed trapped inside their heart instead of becoming spoken words, and times when fear convinced them that waiting was wiser than speaking honestly. Looking back, they understood that some of life's greatest regrets are not always the mistakes we make but the opportunities we allow to pass because we believe another chance will always come. They slowly turned back toward the group, took a deep breath, and answered with complete sincerity. "Yes," they said quietly. "Not because I want to erase the past, but because I understand it differently now." Those words changed the atmosphere immediately. No one expected a perfect explanation or a dramatic confession. Instead, everyone heard something much more meaningful: accountability. Your soulmate wasn't trying to rewrite history or pretend they had never made mistakes. They were acknowledging that growth often begins the moment we stop defending our past and start learning from it. Their honesty surprised everyone because it carried no excuses, no blame, and no attempt to place responsibility on circumstances or other people. It was simply the truth spoken with humility. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. One person at the table leaned forward and gently asked another question. "So why didn't you say something sooner?" That question lingered in the air, and your soulmate smiled sadly before answering. They admitted that for a long time they believed silence would protect everyone involved. They convinced themselves that difficult conversations could wait until emotions settled, that time alone would heal misunderstandings, and that the right moment would eventually arrive. But as the months passed, they realized something important. Time can provide perspective, but it cannot replace communication. Waiting without reaching out had not created clarity. It had created distance. The longer they postponed honesty, the more impossible the conversation seemed. Fear quietly disguised itself as patience, and hesitation began calling itself wisdom. Only later did they recognize that genuine courage is rarely the absence of uncertainty. More often, it is the willingness to speak respectfully even when the outcome cannot be guaranteed. They explained that they had spent too much energy imagining every possible response instead of giving another person the opportunity to answer for themselves. That realization changed the way they viewed relationships entirely. They no longer believed understanding could grow through assumptions. They understood that trust is strengthened through listening, empathy, and honest dialogue. Several people around the room nodded quietly because they recognized pieces of their own lives in those words. The conversation had become much larger than one person's story. It had become a reminder that nearly everyone carries moments they wish they had handled differently. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. As the discussion continued, the atmosphere shifted from curiosity to thoughtful reflection. No one seemed interested in assigning blame anymore. Instead, people began sharing lessons they had learned through their own experiences. One person spoke about apologizing years after believing it was too late. Another described how a single honest conversation repaired a friendship that had nearly disappeared because of simple misunderstandings. Listening to these stories, your soulmate realized they were not alone. Imperfect choices are part of being human. What matters most is what we choose to do after recognizing them. During a quiet pause, someone glanced at their phone and noticed 11:11. Later another person joked that their parking ticket ended with 222, while someone else mentioned seeing 444 on a street address that morning. Many people enjoy treating repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause and become more mindful. Whether understood as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts to reflect, your soulmate appreciated the reminder to stay present rather than becoming trapped in endless thoughts about yesterday or tomorrow. They recognized that peace comes not from predicting the future but from aligning today's choices with honesty, kindness, and integrity. Every conversation became an opportunity to listen more carefully. Every apology became an opportunity to grow. Every expression of gratitude became a reminder that appreciation has its greatest impact when shared while there is still time. Those simple truths began replacing years of unnecessary self-doubt with a quieter confidence rooted in personal responsibility rather than perfect outcomes. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Perhaps you've experienced something similar in your own life. Maybe someone unexpectedly asked a question you had spent years avoiding, only to discover that answering honestly brought more peace than remaining silent ever did. Difficult conversations are rarely easy, but they often become turning points that shape who we become. Unknown to you, your soulmate was discovering exactly that. They no longer feared appearing vulnerable because they had learned that vulnerability handled with wisdom often strengthens relationships instead of weakening them. As the gathering slowly came to an end, one final person quietly approached your soulmate before leaving. With a calm smile, they said words no one else had expected. You've spent enough time running from the truth. Now the only question left is what you're going to do about it. Those words stayed with your soulmate long after everyone had gone home. Standing alone in the silence, they realized that admitting the truth had only been the beginning. The next step would require even greater courage, because the conversation they truly needed to have was still waiting, and this time, they knew they could no longer postpone it. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Long after everyone had left, the words from that unexpected conversation continued echoing through your soulmate's mind. The house was quiet, but their thoughts refused to be. They walked slowly from one room to another, replaying every question, every answer, and every moment of silence that had filled the gathering. For the first time in a long while, they stopped trying to distract themselves from uncomfortable emotions. Instead, they allowed themselves to sit with them. They realized that the confrontation had not embarrassed them as much as it had awakened them. It reminded them that some truths become heavier the longer they remain unspoken. They had spent so much time convincing themselves that the past belonged in the past that they never noticed how much of it they were still carrying into the present. Every unfinished conversation, every assumption, and every opportunity they had postponed quietly followed them into new seasons of life. That evening, they finally admitted something they had never spoken aloud. they had been protecting themselves from disappointment more than they had been protecting anyone else. They believed that avoiding difficult conversations would spare everyone unnecessary pain, but instead it created distance where understanding might have grown. Looking back, they understood that silence had never been a solution. It had only delayed the honesty that was eventually required anyway. That realization was painful, but it also brought unexpected clarity. For the first time, they no longer viewed vulnerability as weakness. They began seeing it as the foundation of every meaningful relationship. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. The next morning, your soulmate decided to spend some time away from the noise of daily routines. They walked through a familiar park where they had often gone during seasons of uncertainty. The path had not changed, yet everything felt different because they were no longer searching for distractions. They were searching for understanding. As they watched people greet one another, laugh together, and enjoy ordinary moments, they realized how often life offers opportunities to express appreciation before it is too late. They remembered conversations where they had held back words of encouragement because they assumed the other person already knew how they felt. They remembered times when pride made apologizing seem more difficult than remaining silent. They remembered believing that another chance would always appear, only to discover that some opportunities quietly pass without announcing their departure. Those reflections did not fill them with hopelessness. Instead, they inspired gratitude for the lessons those experiences had taught. They understood now that genuine relationships are not sustained through perfect circumstances but through everyday habits of kindness, patience, listening, and honesty. The more they reflected, the more they realized that emotional maturity is not measured by never making mistakes. It is measured by how willingly we learn from them and allow them to shape wiser choices in the future. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. As the afternoon continued, your soulmate found themselves noticing small details they might once have ignored. A digital clock briefly displayed 11:11. Later, while buying a cup of coffee, the receipt happened to include 2:22, and before returning home they noticed 444 on a nearby building. Many people see repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause and reflect. Whether viewed as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts for mindfulness, your soulmate chose to let those moments remind them of something simple but powerful. Every new day offers another opportunity to choose integrity over fear. Instead of searching for certainty about what tomorrow might bring, they focused on becoming more intentional with today. They reached out to family members they had not spoken with recently. They thanked a longtime friend for years of quiet support. They apologized where they realized apologies were needed, not because they expected immediate resolution, but because expressing sincere accountability was the right thing to do regardless of the outcome. With each conversation, they felt another layer of unnecessary fear quietly disappear. They realized that courage grows through repeated practice. Every respectful conversation made the next one easier. Every honest admission strengthened their confidence that authenticity creates deeper connections than carefully maintained appearances ever could. They no longer wanted to become someone admired for seeming perfect. They wanted to become someone trusted for being genuine. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Perhaps your own journey has included moments when an unexpected conversation changed the way you viewed yourself. Maybe someone asked a question that challenged assumptions you had carried for years. Perhaps you discovered that one sincere apology brought more peace than endless self-justification ever could. Those experiences quietly reshape who we become. They teach us that lasting relationships are built through consistency rather than grand gestures, through empathy rather than pride, and through honest communication rather than silent expectation. Unknown to you, your soulmate had finally embraced those lessons. The confrontation that once seemed intimidating had become the beginning of remarkable personal growth. They no longer wanted to hide behind unfinished explanations or postponed conversations. Instead, they made a quiet promise to themselves that every future relationship would be guided by openness, respect, gratitude, and compassion. Yet as evening approached, one final realization settled into their heart. They understood that acknowledging the truth was only part of the journey. One important choice still remained. It was not about changing the past, because the past could not be rewritten. It was about deciding what kind of person they would choose to become from this day forward. Standing beneath the fading light of the evening sky, they took one slow breath, reached into their pocket for their phone, and prepared to make a decision that would define the next chapter of their story, one that had the power to transform not only the way they looked at yesterday, but also the way they would approach every meaningful relationship in the future. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. Every meaningful story eventually arrives at a moment when the past no longer asks to be relived but understood. This is that moment. As your soulmate stood quietly beneath the fading evening sky with their phone resting gently in their hand, they realized that the unexpected confrontation had never been about embarrassment, judgment, or proving anyone right or wrong. It had been an invitation to become more honest with themselves. For so long they had believed that moving forward meant pretending certain memories no longer mattered. They now understood that genuine healing is not found by denying the past but by learning from it with humility. They looked back on every conversation that had shaped them, every misunderstanding that had challenged them, every disappointment that had tested their patience, and every act of kindness that had quietly reminded them of the kind of person they hoped to become. None of those experiences had been meaningless. Even the painful ones had taught lessons that comfort alone never could. They had learned that trust is strengthened through consistency rather than dramatic declarations, that appreciation carries the greatest value when expressed while opportunities still exist, and that relationships become healthier when people choose curiosity over assumption and communication over silence. Those lessons had not arrived all at once. They had been gathered slowly, through ordinary days, quiet reflections, and the courage to admit that growth often begins where pride ends. In that moment your soulmate finally understood that the future would not be determined by a single conversation or one unforgettable day. It would be shaped by the countless everyday choices they made from this point forward. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. During the weeks that followed, the changes in your soulmate became visible in ways that seemed almost ordinary to everyone else but deeply meaningful to them. They began making time for conversations instead of postponing them. They listened without interrupting, asked thoughtful questions instead of assuming answers, and became more intentional about expressing gratitude to the people who had quietly supported them through difficult seasons. They realized that kindness is often shown not through extraordinary gestures but through reliability, patience, encouragement, and respect. They also discovered that apologizing sincerely is not a sign of weakness but of emotional maturity. Every honest conversation strengthened their confidence, not because every discussion ended perfectly, but because they were no longer allowing fear to decide how they lived. They accepted that uncertainty will always be part of life, yet uncertainty no longer controlled their choices. They understood that courage is not waiting until all doubts disappear. Courage is choosing integrity even while doubts remain. This simple realization brought them a sense of peace they had searched for far longer than they cared to admit. They stopped measuring success by whether every relationship unfolded exactly as they hoped. Instead, they measured success by whether they approached each relationship with honesty, compassion, humility, and consistency. That quiet shift transformed the way they viewed not only other people but also themselves. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. As life settled into a calmer rhythm, your soulmate continued noticing little moments that encouraged reflection. They smiled after seeing 11:11 while checking the time before leaving home, noticed 222 on a receipt during an ordinary afternoon, later saw 333 on a passing license plate, and ended the day after spotting 444 on a building address. Many people treat repeating numbers like these as reminders to pause and become more mindful. Whether understood as meaningful coincidences or simply personal prompts to slow down, your soulmate welcomed those moments as opportunities to ask themselves a simple question: do my actions today reflect the person I want to become tomorrow? Rather than searching those experiences for predictions or certainty, they allowed them to redirect their attention toward gratitude, patience, forgiveness, and thoughtful communication. They realized that meaningful transformation rarely arrives through dramatic events alone. It develops gradually through countless ordinary choices repeated with sincerity. Every promise carefully kept, every apology offered without excuses, every expression of appreciation, and every moment spent listening with genuine attention quietly shaped a stronger foundation for the future. Those habits became more valuable than any single emotional moment because they reflected a life increasingly guided by integrity rather than impulse. They discovered that peace grows where actions consistently align with values. Don't scroll. Listen carefully. This message is for you. Your heart needs to hear this right now. If this fictional story has reminded you of your own experiences, let it serve as an invitation to reflect rather than a prediction about what lies ahead. Perhaps there is someone you appreciate but have never told. Perhaps there is a misunderstanding that could be eased through one respectful conversation. Perhaps there is a promise to yourself, to become more patient, more honest, more compassionate, or more present. That deserves renewed attention today. None of us can return to yesterday and rewrite what has already happened. We can, however, choose how yesterday's lessons influence today's decisions. Your soulmate's reaction shocked everyone not because it revealed some hidden secret, but because genuine honesty is often more powerful than anyone expects. Instead of hiding behind excuses, they chose accountability. Instead of allowing silence to continue, they chose respectful communication. Instead of remaining trapped by regret, they chose growth. That decision became the turning point of their story. And perhaps that is the greatest lesson this story offers. The future is not built by one dramatic confrontation or one emotional conversation alone. It is built through everyday choices to show kindness when it is easier to withdraw, to speak honestly when silence feels safer, to forgive when resentment seems tempting, and to remain faithful to the values that create trust over time. As the sun finally disappeared beyond the horizon, your soulmate slipped their phone back into their pocket, smiled quietly to themselves, and walked forward with a lighter heart. Not because every answer had been found, but because they finally understood that tomorrow is shaped by the integrity, compassion, and courage we choose to practice today, one sincere conversation and one thoughtful action at a time.